It is 8 o'clock. It is 8 o'clock. So happy to see everyone this beautiful, beautiful Wednesday evening. When I tell you the weather was perfect today, it was just absolutely gorgeous. Thank God for that. We had a lot of storms, but it is all good. So let's get this show on the road. I am a Tanya Jean Funny, your audacious advocate, and I use my love for learning and passion for community engagement to empower families. And let me tell you about tonight. It is going to be a powerful moment. You're going to learn so much with the guests that I have on tonight. Um, I have known this young lady
Okay.
for a lot of years.
Oh, oh yes.
um,
Yes.
and, people want to give the negative things about social media,
Mhm.
but sometimes things social media does positive things.
Mhm.
We have been able to cheer each other on, watch our families grow,
Yes.
pray for each other,
Yes.
just everything because of social media. It's
Mhm.
only now that we live in the same state, but we still live very, very far away.
Yes.
The young lady that I am have the honor of talking to tonight is Miss Tanyika Mayhew Butler. And her resume is just extraordinary. And I'm going to let her share it. But I want to tell you all, she is a wife, she is a mother, she is an educator, and now she is an entrepreneur. And I think she's already been an entrepreneur for some time anyway, doing her hobbies and things like that. But as we talk about going back to school, I
Mhm.
wanted to have someone on tonight that has lived the life of not only just an
Mhm.
educator, but a parent of a special needs child.
Mhm.
And I have seen her go through this journey, and I want her to share her nuggets along the way with
Mhm.
the audience. I always try, my whole hope in these conversations is to bring value to you all. And I hope that through this conversation, you may see something here that will spark an interest or give you a better understanding or just different things like that. So, without further ado, let me bring on, and y'all see this right here. Y'all see that? Y'all see that? That
Yes.
rattler roll right there. So let me bring on a fellow rattler to the stage.
All
Oh, one
right.
second. Hi.
Hello, hello, hello. Okay.
Yes, I
So,
just want to say hello. Your sister Tan is on here. Hello, hello.
one
Veronica
thing I can
is on
say,
here.
my family, truly, truly, I cannot say I have, great sisters. They're always there to cheer me on, rather we're in the same place or there's distance between us. They're
Yes.
always there to cheer me on. So I'm pretty sure you'll probably see some other aunts and whatever pop up as well. So don't be
I think I
surprised.
friended one earlier today.
Probably did. You probably did. You probably did. But yes, thank you so much, Tanya,
Yes.
for inviting me. It's my pleasure to be here tonight on Facebook Live. And let me just say, any nervousness you see is because, believe it or not, this is actually my first Facebook Live. You know,
Oh, yes.
right, exactly. I'll upload a pre-recorded video, but
Okay.
live, I have not. That's not been my lane yet.
I
You heard
like
me say yet.
I like this, just get you on the spot. It's gonna
Yes,
be okay.
yes, 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 yes. So, Atanya gave me more credit than, sometimes I feel like I really don't need all of that credit, but I'll give you a little bit about my background. Like she said, yes, I am a wife and a mother, um, educator, entrepreneur. I always say a little bit of everything. However, to give you a little bit about my history. So I guess I could say our story started like anybody else's. My husband and I got married, college sweethearts, um, two kids, one boy, one girl. And shortly thereafter, when our daughter was one, we were actually placed in a community we never thought we would be in, a community that no one really talks about. And that's a community with autism and special needs parents. That put us in a world like no other. And during that time, there was a lot we had to find out. So we were moving along in this process with Kendall. That's my daughter's name, and my son is Julian. And we were learning about autism, but what we were realizing as well is that the school system was really kind of just, really getting more, becoming more attentive to students with autism. So as we were moving her along through the system, they were learning as well. I can't knock any of our educators. Kendall had some amazing teachers along her journey. Kendall is now 21 years old. She'll actually be 22 in less than a month. And her brother,
Wow.
I know. I can't you believe it? I know. Time flies. Time
Time
flies.
flies.
Yes. So I mentioned the two kids, and let me also back up and say this. They are 14 months apart. So it was really like a set of twins when they were babies. We had two sizes of diapers, bottles, everything, all that wonderful stuff. So with the two of them being so close in age, we just knew we had one boy, one girl. We're going to move throughout life. They're going to be back to back in school. We kind of knew at what point we would be empty nesters, all of these things that we had planned. And our plan was not God's plan.
Yeah.
So things changed. And when we were placed in a world and a community that we never expected, we felt, I can really say, alone. No one really knew a whole lot as we were moving through the school system. We had a great pediatrician, and he was wonderful, and I give him all the credit because he listened to us when we expressed our concerns when Kendall was about 14 months. So we were able to get a diagnosis pretty early for Kendall. And in getting that diagnosis early, some of the things we were able to do, we were able to participate in Babies Can't Wait in the state of Georgia. And then we transitioned to the public school system. And that's actually where Kendall stayed till just May. And that's because in Cobb County, students age out when they fall up under a certain category.
So Tanyika, let's go back.
No problem.
What is Babies Can't Wait, and how can families that may have just got a diagnosis, how do they get in touch with this program? And I'm assuming it's statewide.
It is. Georgia
Okay.
is statewide. And Babies Can't Wait is for children between 0 to the age of 3 that may
Okay.
have some type of special need of some sort. And the reason it starts at 0 is because some kids are born and you immediately know they're going to need extra care, extra attention. They're going to need therapy. So that program exists in every state, but it has a different name. In the state of Georgia, it's Babies Can't Wait. So because Kendall received a diagnosis so early, and when I say early, typically kids at that point, because you got to remember, Kendall is almost 22.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, no one really wanted to put a label of autism on a child under the age of 3.
Okay.
However, our pediatrician listened to us with our concerns, and we, did all of these different assessments. And so we were actually able to have an official diagnosis before she was 2 years old.
Okay.
And because of that,
So is that still the process that most pediatricians wait till around 2?
Well, most pediatricians now, because autism, the numbers they're increasing so much right now.
Yes.
The numbers are so high. When Kendall was diagnosed, we were at maybe like 1 in 500. And now the latest numbers, I think, are like 1 in 44.
Oh, wow.
So you can
Mm.
see the difference. So pediatricians are a little more attentive and they listen. So now people are actually noticing that kids below the age of 12 months are showing signs and symptoms of being on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
So, that's a plus because the big thing is early intervention. And what Babies Can't Wait provided us early intervention. So we were able to do speech therapy through Babies Can't Wait, behavior therapy through Babies Can't Wait, and occupational therapy through Babies Can't Wait.
Now, Tanika, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
You, be, as an educator,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe we're more keen to seeing certain things
Mm-hmm.
that maybe the average parent is not.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to that parent that don't want to see it, don't want to um they don't want to acknowledge
Mm-hmm.
that their child may have some special needs?
I'm going to tell you a story. And this person really does not like for me to say that she gets all the credit. Both of our kids, like I said, they're 14 months apart.
Mhm.
The first year that Kendall was born, I stayed home. I was a stay-at-home mom for a year. When I chose to go back to work, one of our friends decided to stay home an additional year. And she had two kids that were around the same age as Kendall and Julian. So what we did was we let her watch Kendall and we sent Julian to daycare.
Okay.
Well, this is where I tell people that she had a conversation with me that a lot of people still can't have.
Okay.
I'm an educator, and I
Mhm.
don't even think we were in denial. We just really didn't see it. And one day when I went to pick Kendall up, she sat me down and said, I need to talk to you about my Fluffy. At that point, Kendall was really, a juicy baby, and she
Yeah.
called her Fluffy.
Uh-huh.
And she said, I think my Fluffy has a hearing problem.
Mm.
And I was just like surprised, not surprised at how dare you say this to me, surprised because I'm feeling like, how did I miss this? How did we miss the fact that she could possibly have a hearing problem? And she had actually gone online and printed out information about, kids and hearing loss. And what she said was, I'm not sure if it's a hearing problem, but something is going on because I could
Okay.
call her name and she won't respond. But if a certain TV show is on, she'll come from across the house to watch it. So that night when Rich got home from work, that's my husband,
Mhm.
I shared with him and her name is Donna. I shared with him what Donna had shared with me. And we were both like, does she have a hearing problem? And we did some of the things I guess most people would do. Once Kendall fell asleep, we were in the room clinging things together, making sounds, trying to see if we could wake her up. And she's still a pretty hard sleeper. So let me just say that
That
did
didn't
not
work.
help us. It didn't
Yeah.
help us because she
Uh-huh.
didn't budge. She didn't
Okay.
move. So this was really coming up on Thanksgiving. And so we listened to Donna.
Mhm.
We were appreciative, we were thankful, and we still are. I give her all the credit because,
Yeah.
yes, at some point we would have recognized it, but probably not as soon as she recognized it.
So you went to
And
the doctor and said that you think your daughter has a hearing problem?
yes, so
Mhm.
because they said, the hearing problem, our pediatrician then sent us to have her hearing tested.
Mhm.
And to go through all of the other assessments, speech, OT, physical therapy. And he told us, because this was Thanksgiving, go ahead and start scheduling those appointments because it could take months. And it did.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so from that, we were able to then get all of those assessments. We saw a developmental pediatrician and we got a diagnosis. So I want educators to understand and people to understand it's real easy, even if you are an educator, to miss things. Now, what
Yeah.
I want parents to understand is an autism diagnosis is just like any other diagnosis. So we don't want to ignore it because the sooner we can treat it and, actually work on some things, the better things are, with the child and their adaptability. So they're not struggling to communicate and getting so frustrated. And that was
Mhm.
a big part of things. helping Kendall control her emotions when she didn't have as many words to
Okay.
express how she was feeling. So, by starting with Babies Can't Wait, we transitioned from Babies Can't Wait to the public school system. So Kendall started school at the age of 3. And a lot of people, are shocked when we say that, because they're like, really? I didn't know that was such a thing. You have to check in your county, but we were able to start with her at the age of 3 in their special needs pre-K class. Some districts call them early intervention. It's different names they put to it, but she started at 3 in the public school system. And we were in the public school system with her until May of 2023.
Yeah.
So everything moved along, and we had a whole lot of challenges. That's something I detail all of our challenges in a book I wrote last year. I think it was last year. So that story came about simply because I wanted people to know that the journey with autism, everyone doesn't have this perfect picture. And people always ask, this is a question, how is Kendall right now? And I always let people know, we will be her lifelong caregivers. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But where Kendall was, she's come so far, and she continues to improve each and every day. So she's very independent. She can, bathe herself, put on her clothes. If something's in the refrigerator, she can put it in the microwave. So she's a very independent girl. Her speech is not always clear, but she understands a lot more than she's able to verbally articulate. And
Okay.
that's something we always tell people. Do not assume the verbal and the cognitive match with any child with special needs. So,
Tanyika,
mhm,
let's back up a little bit.
okay.
Um, when she got in school, as she went through elementary, middle, high school, what were okay, so I'm gonna take it back a little bit. So
Okay.
like I said at the beginning, we have been cheering each other on through
For years.
for yeah, through
For
social
years.
media,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And as a teacher myself, I um I did not I did not knowingly know I was teaching an autistic student, because
Yes.
he was mainstream.
Yes.
So the parents told me,
Hmm.
but they didn't want him to know. So
Okay.
they didn't tell him.
Okay.
Um, but I feel like through watching you and going through your journey, that it
Hmm.
helped me to interact with him
Hmm.
as an autistic student.
Correct.
Um, how did you work with the teachers along the way? Because I'm sure you had some where the experiences were better than others. And also, do
Hmm.
do you have to do the teachers have, I mean, I know like Kendall's case, they know because she's in a special class, but like
Hmm.
in my case, I had a student that was pretty
Mainstream.
high
Hmm.
functioning,
Yes.
mainstream.
Hmm.
They don't have to tell the teachers that they're autistic, right?
Well, if the student has an IEP, then
Mhm.
the teacher will know.
Okay.
And that's that individualized education plan. So if
Yes.
a student has an IEP, the teacher has to know, because the teacher has to implement what's in that IEP. Now, there are a lot of students, like you said, who are high functioning, that are in an inclusion setting, mainstream throughout the entire day. So, what typically can happen where a teacher may not know, or there is no, I guess, official diagnosis for autism? One
Mhm.
of the things now that a lot of people are talking about is neurodivergent. That basically means that's some sensory issues. And what you may notice more, maybe more so of the sensory issues that show and, present in class. So if the parent does not tell you, I always say, if you notice something and you think this seems like some of the behaviors seem a little different to you, do your research. Just kind of, Google around, ask some of your coworkers, and see what they suggest you do, because you'd be surprised that some small changes can make a really big difference. So
Okay.
that was why I started talking to counselors. That's kind of where things went from there as I was moving through the system with Kendall. was I felt like school counselors were not a part of the conversation when it came to an autistic student in a school building. So, and it wasn't that they didn't want to be. No one was educating them. So I started doing trainings to help school counselors learn more about autism and learn some best practices. And
So
some of the
you
things,
started training not only the counselors at your school, but other schools also.
right, I started doing presentations. If I could
Yeah.
get in the county, I did a presentation. At a state conference, I did a presentation. I was there because I wanted them to feel comfortable. And the reason I wanted them to feel comfortable was because all of the information, as we started hearing more about autism, a lot of it was creating more of a fear.
Mm.
The only thing we would hear was about disruptive behaviors. So no one was really talking about how you can prevent some of the disruptive behaviors, what you can do when a child reaches that moment of sensory overload. What you need to do if you're going into a classroom, and how you need to be mindful, even if you don't know for sure that a student is in there that's on the autism spectrum. That student may still be neurodivergent. They still may have some sensory issues, and how you can tailor what you do to make sure that student feels comfortable. So that was what things were for me. I wanted other school counselors to feel comfortable when
Mm-hmm.
they interacted with students on the spectrum. And from that, it just kind of kept going. And that's what I, was doing as I continued to work as a school counselor up until May of this year. and, and effective June 1st of 2023, I decided to retire early.
Mm-hmm.
That retirement came about simply because I felt like it was more than just helping educators, which was mainly I was dealing with school counselors.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to help
So
parents.
how did
Mhm.
working with school counselors trickle down to teachers?
Well, this is the thing. I talked to some tech teachers once. I presented at a conference, and
Okay.
it was a tech conference. I was invited, and the tech teachers were so excited to get the information because
Exactly.
no
Yeah.
one had ever sat them down to say, hey, these are some things that if you maybe try this, it'll make a world of a difference. No one ever talked to them about how changing your classroom, it's okay to change your classroom, but you really want to give a child a heads up
Heads up.
and
Okay.
just let them know, hey, I'm going to change the classroom. So when you come in tomorrow, it's going to be different. Something so small like that
Wow.
can keep the
Mm-hmm.
child from entering the room and losing it because you have changed that setting.
Wow.
So
Didn't even
that
think about it. And the teacher could be thinking like, "Oh, we're going to do something new and different and fun and exciting," and not realizing just that can just change everything.
can change everything simply because you changed what was normal to them, what was a part of their routine. Their routine was
Routine.
their chairs were in a row in that classroom, and I'm walking in and you put them in a circle.
Mhm.
And you want to then think, oh, that this child is just having a bad day. But what has happened is you have disrupted what was part of their routine.
Wow.
And that's something small that a lot of teachers were never told to pay attention to.
Mhm.
Um, One of the things that my co-counselor and I worked with a counselor for 13 years before I retired. And we worked at a middle school together. And she was on the journey with me from the time Kendall started school until we separated and I went to a different school.
Mhm.
And because of that, it made, her awareness heightened. Other teachers I was
Absolutely.
around, it made their awareness heightened. And we would be very cautious. Something people never think about, when we would have school assemblies and everybody would say, okay, we're taking all of one grade level into the theater. We knew students that we needed to keep an eye on, to watch for signs that that presentation was becoming a little too much for them and that they needed to be removed. But that was because she, had been around me and talked about, sensory overload and how it can happen and how you get a warning. No one just gets upset. You start to see different things. to let you know that person is becoming overwhelmed. And those are things that I like to share during a presentation to get people to understand. Just pay attention, not to say that child cannot go to an assembly, but just be mindful, kind of keep an eye out.
Okay.
Because, like the student you had in your class, that student could become so upset, and how that frustration presents can be different.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Um, for Kendall, her frustration presents as aggressive behavior. But
Okay.
that's not with every child that's on the spectrum. It could just simply be they may get up and storm away and run off. They may elope just to get away. So, by sharing just small tips with educators that started with school counselors, and really working with other educators and building sharing tips as well, it was something I realized needed to be done more. And so, with the counselors, because counselors are supposed to interact with all students, we're supposed to do activities in all classroom settings. Well, if you're not comfortable, then that's not going to be something you really make, a priority to do. You'll find any reason to not do it, not because you really don't, just because you don't know, you're not comfortable, and you're like, I'm just going to stay away. So that was part of why I wanted to talk to counselors as well. I wanted them to feel comfortable going
Yes.
into a classroom,
Just having the tools.
just having the right tools to go into, whether the student was in an inclusive setting or rather the student was in a smaller setting. I wanted them to feel comfortable in both settings. I wanted them to understand how small things could change their entire lesson during the time they were in the classroom. And that was really where it all came from.
And we're talking about Kendall now. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I remember a few years ago, I guess when Kendall turned 18, between 17, 18, there was a process that you went
Woo!
through, and
Yes,
so tell us about that, because she is legally an
an
adult
adult.
by
Yes,
age. So
yes.
what did you have to go through at
Mm-hmm.
that point?
So that is also why I want to help parents.
Mm-hmm.
That transition to adulthood is a process within itself with no real clear direction, is the best way I can say that. So, one of the things, because of Kendall's intellectual disability as well as her autism diagnosis, we knew we wanted to get guardianship. That basically meant we had control over what happens for her. And when I say we, that's my husband and I.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what people fail to realize is that once a child reaches 18, if they are 18, it does not matter that that is your biological child. If you do not get legal guardianship, that child really can make decisions for themselves. And it
Wow.
does not matter what their, whether or not they have an intellectual disability or not. So we knew this was something we needed to do. So parents understand that may be your biological child, but at 18, you really need to look into getting guardianship. And that basically meant there was all this paperwork we had to do. It was a lot. It was a lot. Um, we had to involve two friends in the process because we had to have two friends fill out statements saying that we were the best individuals to raise our own daughter.
Wow.
So that was one of those things that was just, it was so hard to process and understand. I need to have someone else say that we're the best people to raise her from 18 on. And so we did the paperwork. It comes with a cost. The cost, from what I seem to hear across the state, is about the same. And it was $600.
Okay.
And we went through the probate court, which is the same, in the state of Georgia. And we actually had to go before a judge to
For
basically,
your
we're
own
petitioning
child.
for my own child. I mean, imagine that. I had to get on the stand with the judge and talk about Kendall and then explain why we were the best to raise her as well. So we then were able to get guardianship, but it
And that
still doesn't.
process took about how long?
We actually went in before her birthday. We wanted to have guardianship as soon as she turned 18.
Okay.
That was us. So at 17, I made sure that I was gathering documentation. That's a tip I need to give parents. I need you to make sure, if you've never gathered any of your child's documents, when they hit 14, if they have an IEP, you need to gather and keep all documents. You need to keep IEPs. You need to keep the psychological. You need to keep notes that, people may tell you how things are going in different settings.
Oh,
All of
wow.
that information is going to be needed when you start moving forward with guardianship and other things. And, if no one tells you, you can be caught off guard when they're asking you, do you have the last IEP? Do you have a current psychological? Right. These
Wow.
were things that they were asking us for. A state ID. It does not matter if your child has an intellectual disability or not. They need a state ID.
They need a state ID.
They need a state ID. Yes. So as soon as Kendall turned 16, we went and we got a state ID. And it was an easy process. We went in, she took a picture and she has an ID. It's a legal ID. And that is simply because you're going to be asked for certain things like that. You're going to be asked for that birth certificate. And I know you're thinking, this child is, 18. They're still going to ask you for those things. They're going to ask you for the Social Security number. So make sure you are holding on to those documents, because you're going to be asked more than once for them. And so with this transition process to adulthood, we then had to start looking at the other part. What's going to happen when she finishes school, when she ages out? And so that's where we get into Georgia and Georgia Medicaid.
Okay.
And the Medicaid waiver. This is something that people don't realize, that you need to pay attention to government more than you think. When they cut money from Medicaid, that impacts Medicaid waivers for individuals who have intellectual disabilities. So there are parents who have now placed their kids on the waiting list for the Medicaid waiver so that they have services when they are no longer age appropriate for school and their kids are in middle school. We actually got
they're on a waiting list now. Their kids are in middle school and they're on a waiting list,
just so they can hopefully, by the time they reach that age, that they will be able to get support through the Medicaid waiver.
Now, I don't want to get on my soapbox, Tanyika.
I know.
But you know what? I say this over and over again. Everything is political.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
When we talk about Medicaid expansion, this is one of the issues that arise without having that coverage for a population of people in the state.
Yes. And so because of that, right now, we have a Medicaid waiver. We are very fortunate that we were able to get things right after she finished school. Well, in May. But what we are now struggling with is finding space in a day program.
Yes.
Because there aren't enough facilities. The workers aren't paid enough. So it limits the number of adults they're able to have in that day program.
Tan said, this is why we must vote. And Tan, not only must vote, can we please research who we are voting for?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Can we please?
Research in Clayton County. I need you all to understand. Tanya is fighting for you. This is someone who knows education. She wants to make a difference. We've got to stop walking into, the voting booth and seeing a name that's familiar. We voted for.
No, not even the name familiar. Just seeing an eye. You see that eye for incumbent, and we just check it off.
Correct. We've got to pay attention. Make sure they've done something for you. Where are they voting when it comes to certain things? So people don't think about that Medicaid part.
And there are forums. We getting off subject.
I know.
There are forums for you to get to know who's running. Now,
Yes.
if there's a forum from an organization and they invite the candidates and one of your candidates don't show up,
That speaks volumes. It tells
come
you a
on,
lot about the person. It tells you they don't want to answer any questions. They don't want to be held accountable for choices they've
how can
made
you
in the
hold somebody
past.
accountable when you haven't given them any
Yes.
guidelines of what you holding them accountable for? They haven't made any promises or I'm going to try or
Right.
this is what my platform is. They haven't done any of that. And
Yes.
you just vote for them. So they
Yes.
can go in the office and just sit there. They could not show up. And
And it's okay. And it's okay. And so things like Medicaid funding gets cut.
mhm,
Or if it doesn't get cut, it stays the same.
it's
Well,
not
staying the
expanded,
same
even though it
is
could
not
be with that surplus that we have in the state of Georgia.
correct. Correct. So you have kids right now who Kendall is 21, she'll be 22. There are kids
Mhm.
that are in their late 20s who are still waiting for approval for a Medicaid waiver. They've been on the list for years.
How do they get health care?
So you can get health care. Now, Tanya, we're going down a whole nother road, but
I
let's
know,
go.
I know.
Let's go. We're fine.
Because
So
there are other services that they need that
yes,
Medicaid covers. So they're
correct.
not
So
getting those services.
it's two different things. So along with guardianship, once the child reaches the age of 18, you are able to apply for that child to get SSI.
Yes.
And it no longer is based on the parent's income.
Okay.
So that's a big
Tell
difference.
everyone what SSI is. We use a lot of letters
Oh,
around here.
basically, Social Security benefits is what it is.
Okay.
Sorry. So
Mhm.
once you get those benefits, which once again requires a lot of documentation about your child. And with that, we were able to, once we got, SSI for her, we got Medicaid for her. But
Mhm.
getting Medicaid for her did not mean we were then approved for her Medicaid waiver. That is two different things.
Wow.
I know. And that's what people don't realize. So you're talking about a different process. Guardianship is one process. Applying for SSI is
Another
one process.
process.
The Medicaid
Medicaid
waiver
waiver.
is another process. So if
Mm.
you're looking at vocational rehab for your child, that's another process. And the systems are not all linked together.
You brought up something too that I actually ran into, me on my my candidacy
Mm-hmm.
pathway.
Yes.
I ran into a parent that
Mm-hmm.
had a child that
Mm-hmm.
had aged out of
Mm-hmm.
regular school,
Yes.
and they were asking, where do
What do
I
I
take
do?
my child now?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I had no
You had
answer.
no
I
answer for
tried
them.
to call around. I didn't know.
Right.
So,
It becomes, this is the part where once again voting is so important,
mhm,
because when it comes to that placement, up until the child ages out of school, everything they receive through the school system is they have to legally receive. They have to receive those services. But
yes.
once you hit a certain age, it is now based on eligibility.
Wow.
And that's a big change. So from
Mhm.
the time Kendall was 3 until late 20, when she was 21, she's 21 in like 8 months. It was all based on what you had to give her, because legally it fell within, different laws that you have to make sure she receives the accommodation she's supposed to have.
Yes.
But then it becomes based on eligibility. And when it becomes based on eligibility is why you have people who, like she said, she's trying to find somewhere for her son. She
Yes.
may be trying to find someone somewhere, and she may not have a Medicaid waiver to help her. Some of the
Mm.
things I ran into when, having a discussion, going to fairs and planning for Kendall, that some of the agencies that do exist, when I asked, okay, if we don't have the Medicaid waiver to help support this, can we pay? And she was like, no.
No.
That's not how they're not set up that way. So I couldn't even buy a spot.
Wow.
Right. So that when you say the parent was like, what do I do? That is a question I need a lot of people to realize. You have a lot of individuals
And is
who,
that by county, or you can go if you can find a spot any county? You're no
well,
longer restricted to counties.
but you got to get there.
Yeah.
You got to get there. So
And
like
how do
right
we
now,
even find out about where are the facilities?
so we're gonna have to come together again, Latanya. We're gonna put all that together. I'm gonna make sure I have everything typed up for you so I can just say, hey, share this so that I
Yes.
can make sure I give you all of the correct websites and everything. But
Okay.
there really is no map, which is, part of why we
So
never got
now
to
let's
it.
get into what you are doing now. Because
Correct. That's
listen,
exactly
if
yes.
anybody would have thought, well, do we need this? You just
Yes.
heard why we need your advocacy and consulting.
Yes. So I retired early because I realized I needed to do more than just impact the counselors I was working with. That really is bigger than that.
Yes.
That I now have a consulting firm. Kendall Autism Supporting Consulting is what I started this year. And that is to help parents one-on-one support in trying to navigate this journey. And it's not just the autism journey, it's a journey of being a parent of a special needs child. There
Yep.
is no blueprint to tell you what to do, and it can be very overwhelming at times. It could be very easy to just say, I give up,
Mm-hmm.
because you're just overwhelmed with paperwork you need to fill out for all of these different systems that aren't talking to each other. And it would make life so much easier if they did, but they don't. So you have to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. So I provide the one-on-one support for families. I also, moving forward later this year, will start to have group support for parents to talk about the different topics of things that we have dealt with moving along. One of the
Mm-hmm.
big things is having a girl with an intellectual disability. There are some things you have to think about that you may not have to think about with the boy. And you've got to prepare yourself for those things because you can't ignore them.
Yes.
Even though they have an intellectual disability, their body is still performing and growing along the pace of their age.
Yes.
So those are things, for that monthly conversation to get parents starting to think about as well, along with this transition to adulthood, because it's so much. And for schools to actually say, you know what, we really need to get somebody in here. Our teachers are asking. The teachers are asking, please, can I have some training just to help me understand how to best support the students that are in my class that are on the spectrum, that are neurodivergent? And there really is no training there. So
And
what tends
also
to
one
happen?
of the things that came up, and
Mhm,
one of our residents, Siobhan, is on watching
mhm.
um summer. Like they were asking for
Summer
summer
program?
camp, summer programs for children with special needs.
Yes.
And
Very few exist.
yeah,
So it becomes that whole thing of looking way ahead of time.
yeah.
That's really what it becomes. So school is starting back right now. Come January of 2024, parents
Mhm.
need to start looking if they're trying to find a summer camp, because whatever spots do exist, they fill up fast.
Fast.
And
Yeah,
that's
because
part of it.
if the numbers is 1 in 44 now.
Correct. Correct. So you can see where, and that's just autism, but we're talking about also young adults with intellectual disabilities, special needs. All of that kind of comes together when you're looking for services.
Yes.
So once again, it goes back to voting is so important. So I started the consulting business because I want to be there to support parents, grandparents. We have a lot of grandparents raising their grandkids on the
Yes.
spectrum
Mhm.
and or with special needs, and they're just trying to figure out what to do as well. A lot of the things we talk about is definitely worlds apart from what they knew about the school system. They want to support and they aren't sure how to support. So that's something I want to, I'm going to provide is that support through those group meetings, those monthly meetings, and talking about what you can do at your home to prepare for the holidays. Because everybody knows if you come to visit us, and understand Thanksgiving, we have a house full.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody understands we are an autism home. So things are going to operate a certain way because it's what Kendall needs. And nobody has a problem with that. But that's because my family is aware. We talk about it. They've been educated on how to best support Kendall. They know how to take care of Kendall. They know how to watch Kendall. But when the parent is still so uncomfortable and can't really figure things out because they're just overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Like I think you might have mentioned something at one time just about, if my daughter doesn't speak to you, she's not being rude, or
Correct.
just
Correct.
different, just like being out in
Yes.
public. I think I kind of
Yes.
remember that.
Yes. Yes. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand. She was much smaller, and how adults do, the adult, you know, wanted to speak to both kids. It's a boy and a girl. And Kendall didn't respond, and I responded. And she was like, I was asking her. Well, then of course I had to play the parent and let her know she's not going to respond. Because at
Yeah.
that point, really and truly, Kendall was identified as nonverbal. Now that's
Mm-hmm.
not the case right now, which is why I tell parents what you hear at the beginning does not mean how things are going to keep moving along. Her speech continues to improve on a regular basis. She really has hit us with questions like why, which kind of threw us the first time it happened, because we weren't expecting to add, for her to hit us with a why we were doing something.
Yes.
But being out in public, when you see a parent, a lot of parents don't go out with their kids because
Mm-hmm.
of the stares, that judgment in your eyes of control your child. Instead of, judging, step in and ask, is there anything I can do to help?
Yeah.
See how you
And
can
look, Tanika, that you don't even have to have a child with special needs,
to know.
because
Yes.
my little 14-year-old that's running around here now like a halfway grown man was the same 3-year-old, and all of my friends will tell you that rolled around on the floor in the middle of a store like it
Correct.
wasn't nobody's business.
Exactly.
So I think, we just got to have that
Compassion.
patience
That
for
patience and compassion,
and
the
compassion.
empathy.
Yes.
And so a lot of parents don't go out because they don't want to
Hmm.
deal with that judgment. And
Yeah.
one of the things I want to get parents to understand is you can go out. You just got to, prepare yourself for it and plan for it and be ready. If you have to leave, you've got to leave. So,
Yeah.
for example, when they were smaller, going to the zoo, we bought season passes to the zoo. I suggest this simply because Kendall had a meltdown the first time. We had to leave.
Yeah.
Well, because we had season passes, we could then go back. It wasn't a problem. But when you just buy that one set of tickets and that one child is not able to handle that setting, then the other child suffers.
Hmm.
So you've got to think about your other children as well. So we had to be very mindful of her brother and things that we did. A big part of our journey involves having to make a tough decision as a parent. We were asked to leave a daycare when Kendall first started daycare. At that point, both of them were at the same daycare. And we were asked to leave with her. They did not want her to be a part of that program. We had to have a hard conversation, my husband and I, and decide, do we leave him or do
Yeah.
we move them both?
Yeah.
And we had to decide what was best for him was not best for her. And we
Hmm.
left him and we moved her, and we moved around several times with daycares, let me just say.
Yeah.
And so from that became how our story kind of continued, because they were only 14 months apart. But once he left elementary school, they were never in the same school again
Hmm.
because their needs were different. And we had to go where her needs were going to be met the best, which is hard sometimes because that has placed Kendall sometimes where she's been about 40 minutes from home. But
Wow.
it was the best place for her. So, which is hard sometimes for parents. It's easy to want them to stay, and I get it. But sometimes you just got to accept that all settings can't offer the same thing.
And see, and that's why I didn't want you to, to just go from baby to she 21. No, because I saw your journey. I saw your journey and I
And
want
it
to
has
make
not been
sure
easy. It
it
has
was
not been easy. And I
it was
tell
not
people
an
this.
easy journey.
It's not been an
So,
easy journey, but I always want people to know one thing I can say for sure is because I have faith. When Kendall was born, she would not make a sound.
mm,
And the doctor had to really tap her to make a sound, to cry. And she eventually cried, but she spent 4 days in the NICU because she would stop breathing. And I remember I delivered Kendall and it was nighttime and they brought her to me. And well, before they brought her to me, they told me we're going to have to keep her in the NICU. She continues to stop breathing, but if you tap her feet, she starts back. So we've got to run some tests. And at this point, I really had not seen her because I delivered by C-section. There was a sheet up. They kind of, because she wouldn't breathe, she wasn't crying. You kind of moved her off to the side, tapping her. So I really had not seen her. And the nurse came in and she said, we tried to bring her over to you, but she stopped breathing again. So we're going to bring you a picture. So you'll have at least a picture of her. And
wow.
I remember, instead of being worried, there was a sense of peace that came over me that has basically helped me throughout this journey, that told me she was going to be okay. They gave me the picture and I went to sleep. I knew she was going to be okay. And so to fast forward, she actually was. They never were able to tell us why. We left the hospital with a breathing monitor and gave it back after 6 weeks. So that sense of peace that I received that night, when I've gotten frustrated, there have been moments when I've cried. There have been moments when I have fallen to my knees. I can come back to, she's going to be okay. And because of that, I don't hold on to that frustration at all.
So when you have to change schools, you just have to change schools. When you
and we've been
you
through a
just have to
journey.
do it.
Yes, and I mentioned it that last year I wrote a book, and it tells you how we change
Yes.
schools. This is a copy of the
What's the
book.
name of it?
A
Because it's a
Crusade
glare.
for Kendall, and it's with the Crusade is with the K, and it talks about those transitions we had to
And
make.
where can people find it?
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
It's actually available on Amazon right now. And it's a Crusade for Kendall. Crusade is with a K. And it's a Black family's journey with autism. Now, understand, it was our story.
And 10 said, and the next day, her big sister, me, was there. And we slept in the hospital together until the three of us left.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
God.
Yes, we left. I was more worried about her because Rich had to go meet her at the airport because she was coming in to help us. And I said, you're going to have to prepare my sister before she gets to this hospital to let her know her niece is in the NICU. She was more upset than we were. And so, that peace comes back.
Yeah.
That peace that came over me then continues to come back, no matter what has happened. And we have been through some things. At some point during our journey, Kendall was in the most extreme behavior school setting because of her behaviors. So we've had our moments where she could tear up a room. We shared it in our book. There's a moment where I actually had to get stitches above my eye from a remote she threw at me.
And I want to say thank you for there are some families that are going through the same things that you went through and you would never know because they didn't share it. And when I say you, over these 20 some years, you shared everything.
Yes.
Like I literally, how many times did we actually talk? Like not that
many, but yeah. Yes.
We stayed in each other's lives and like everything you're saying, like I remember when you showed those stitches above your head, and I remember when you said, "Look, perfectly healed now. Don't even show
exactly,
it."
Exactly. That was not about me. That was for someone else to remind them that it's gonna be okay.
It's gonna be okay. Yep.
And so the other part that I didn't even mention that threw us a whole plot twist when both kids were in elementary school was then I received a diagnosis of MS. So then that put us in a whole nother community of things to deal with. So we were dealing with Kendall and autism. We were now a part of that special needs community, the community nobody talks about, the community that kind of has you sitting out there by yourself. um, then we had my diagnosis, and we were trying to figure out what was going to be the best thing, and the symptoms I was dealing with. And I refused, even at that point in diagnosis at 2009, I
Yeah.
refused to see myself in a place of pity.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those things that a
And you
lot of
shared that
people.
too. You're like, I gotta go in for my what
My
infusion?
MRI.
Yeah.
I do an infusion now every 6 months. I just did an
Yeah.
MRI the other day, 45 minutes in an MRI tunnel. And I promise you, I just sitting there, I sing, I pray, and I get through it and come
Yeah.
back out. And I'm like, okay, what's next? But
Mm-hmm.
I want parents to understand you've got to have that optimistic outlook. You've got to parent with positivity. You're going to have
Oh, I
moments.
like that. Parent with positivity.
You got to
Yes.
parent with positivity. I need you to understand you are going to have those moments where you are frustrated. You feel like there is no way I can go on from this. You're going to feel like life is not fair. I need you to have a pity party, but I'm going to need you to get up
Get up.
and start the next day and figure out if there's something you can do differently. If it is, start figuring out and working on it. If not,
Yeah.
if nothing else, get up, get dressed. I cannot stress that enough.
Yes.
I always made sure if I was not feeling well because of my MS, if we had had a bad night or bad morning with Kendall, I always made sure that I put my best self forward. I presented, and it wasn't a matter of being fake. And that's what I need people to understand. I was always told, if you want to feel better, then look better. So
Mm-hmm.
whenever I got dressed, everything that was going on, I could kind of shake off some of that because I'm looking at myself, and I refuse to let it be something that I wore as a badge
Yeah.
of this is this autism, this is my MS. I just refuse. And so the more we can get parents to understand you are not alone. That's a big part of things. You're not alone. Um, I know it seems like you are because you're trying to figure out who can I talk to about these different things. And I know I'm one person starting a company, but it's going to change things. The conversations are
Oh,
happening.
absolutely.
And because the conversations are happening, we're going to start to see some changes. So, you're in Clayton County. I actually had the benefit to do a workshop with your counselors in Clayton County last month before the students
Awesome.
return. And we
Mm-hmm.
talked about how to meet the needs of special needs students and their families. And we talked about some of the things they can do. And it wasn't big things, it was just be mindful of the small things. Think of ways to be more inclusive as a school, with different events. One of the events I share is a lot of people have donuts for dad. Well, you never think about your kids that are neurodivergent or have sensory issues that are autistic. Those settings can be very loud.
Yes.
Well,
But
when
the
you have
kids
a
are very excited.
correct, well, how about having a separate one that's sensory friendly? It's not as many students. The lights are down low. You take away some of those things that can become distractors and that could oversensitize someone, and you still allow parents to have that donuts for dad. It's just in a different setting, so they're able to still get that experience. We miss out on a lot of experiences as special needs parents because the school just really doesn't take us into consideration.
Yeah.
It's like this is what we're doing and that's it. um
So let
Go
me
ahead.
tell you on that note,
Uh-huh.
how do people get in touch with you, young lady?
Okay,
And you
so
and you need 10 of you because this crusade has got to go all over the country.
and it is.
I see you going all over the world because
This crusade is needed. The crusade
yes,
is needed so that we can have the conversation, so parents can start feeling okay talking about their nights of frustrations with their babies. That
yes,
no one, when I call into a job, and I've had great, let me just say that as well, I've had great principals along this journey, that
yeah.
if I've gotten a call about Kendall and I'm like, I need to go, there was no question. It was go do what
Mhm.
you need to do. And I would always tell everybody, I'm still a parent. I may work in the school, but if they call about my child, I've got to go see what's going on to see
Yeah.
how to handle things. So one of the ways is I'm on Facebook. I'm on Facebook by my name,
Mm-hmm.
Tanyika Mayhew Butler. I also have a Facebook page, Kendall Autism Support and Consulting. And I'm on Instagram at Autism Support Coach. So those are three ways. Then I have a website because I offer a free 20-minute consultation for parents. My
Oh, wow.
website is www.kendall, KendallAsc.org. I'll say it again, www.kendall,
Let me see if I can put it in
Ken,
here.
KendallAsc.org. And I do provide a 20-minute free consultation to just talk to parents. Now, one of the other things that I've done, and it's, this was part of my Take Care of Tomorrow. Actually, Tanya, I actually wrote a second book.
All right now.
So this is actually a workbook, and it's actually available now with pre-sales on my website.
Okay.
And I wrote the book because I wanted to create a booklet, as I say, for parents that didn't require you to read from the beginning of the book to the end of the book to get a suggestion or a strategy or a tip to work with their
Mm-hmm.
child. I basically made it to where it's a quick read. It's not even a read. You just find the section that you're looking for, and it's right here in the book. So you don't have to read the book from cover to cover to get
For it to be able to assist you.
correct. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to keep it as plain and simple language as possible, because I think sometime in education, we get to, talking about too much education jargon.
Yeah.
And we lose parents. So I created this so that I wouldn't lose parents. I didn't want them to pick it up and feel like, oh, this is too much. When you pick it up, it's an easy flip through and find, and it's about 100 pages of information and strategies for best practice. And so that's available on the website right now for pre-sales.
Awesome.
So if I could wrap up and let parents know, I need you to understand that moving through the system, if you're not comfortable when you're in a meeting, you don't feel like you understand, you have the right to stop the meeting. You have the right to stop the meeting and seek clarity. Do not feel like you have to go on when you're unclear about what they're saying about your child. And make sure you're collecting documents. And then this is my big one.
Mm-hmm.
I need parents to understand that I can be a very strong advocate for Kendall, my husband and I.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not coming in for the battle. So the best way I can sum that up is when we would go into meetings for Kendall, we went in like Clark Kent. If anything happened that didn't go the way we wanted, we could become super parents. But we didn't go in army fatigue ready for battle.
Ooh, that's good.
And I need parents to
That's
understand,
good.
stop going in for the battle. You can be a strong advocate and not destroy the relationship.
Yes.
And so no matter how strong of an advocate we were for Kendall, we never destroyed the relationship because we had to work hand in hand. We had to work as a team for her. Home and school, we had to be in communication. And I didn't want to create a situation where they didn't feel comfortable contacting me about her.
But that advice is not just for
It's
special
not.
needs. That is for, oh my goodness.
It's not.
That is just back to school advice 101.
Yes. Don't go in ready to battle. Just take the fatigues off. I need you to go in.
Breathe and let's get the whole story. Let's get the whole situation and let's see how we can work together.
Correct.
As a teacher, as a parent.
Correct.
The relationship has got to be there because we're doing this for the child.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So, and gather the paperwork. 14.
And also you talked about Babies Can't Wait is the organization in Georgia, but there's an organization in every state.
Yes.
That
it's just a different name from 0 to 3.
0 to 3. Mm-hmm. 0 to 3. And so if any parent gets that diagnosis or has questions, they
You
need
need to
to,
start with the
don't do it by
pediatrician.
yourself. Yes, start the
Correct.
pediatrician.
If the child is older than 3, contact your school system where you live and ask them about share your concerns and find out what you need to do for an assessment.
Okay, for an
To have your
assessment.
correct. So don't sit back. If you see something, even if you think something, I need parents to see this as if you would treat a child that's diabetic. You will not leave them without the proper care. So don't leave your child that's autistic, neurodivergent, has some special needs. Don't leave them without the proper care. And
Awesome.
that may mean you've got to deal with some things. And that's the hard pill to swallow sometimes. Swallow the pill and then figure out what do I need to do next to support my child. But don't stay in denial. When you stay in denial, our kids suffer.
And I think this conversation was so fabulous, not just for parents, but if the statistics is 1 in 44, you know someone,
Most
you know
definitely.
a family that
Most
has
definitely.
an autistic child or a
Most
child with
definitely.
special needs.
Correct.
So that's
Most
why it was
definitely.
so important for me to get you here.
Mm-hmm.
Back to school and all that great stuff. And you coming back, and we coming
Yes.
back with resources,
Yes,
and
ma'am. Yes,
we're gonna put it
ma'am.
all together. But I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
this conversation was so important because everyone has a part to play, because we are a village and it's going to
Yes.
take all of us, and
Yes.
nobody else is coming to save us. We got to save ourselves.
Correct. Exactly. Exactly. And we've got to know
Yeah.
who to turn to when we don't understand. That's what I
Yes.
need parents to be comfortable asking. When you don't understand, say something. And I need for families to step up and support. And that's a two-parter there. So the parent, if you're not understanding, ask questions. If that person can't answer it, have call somebody else
Yeah.
and see. Ask a friend. And families step up. That's a big thing. A lot of parents, kids on the spectrum say they have no support.
Yeah, I remember you all take turns going to homecoming.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then but when you went, your sister was there
Yes.
to
Because
watch
my
Kendall.
sisters are fabulous. Let me just say, we're
Yes,
all
they are.
rattlers. We're all rattlers. Let me just say, my husband is a rattler as well. And about what, 2 years ago,
Mhm.
because of the flip flop, we couldn't both go. I mean, my family is
Because I
great.
actually ran into your husband
Yes,
at
yes,
homecoming.
yes. Understand, my family is great, but we live in a different state.
Mhm.
And my oldest sister decided, oh, I'm willing to come to Tallahassee and I'll stay with Kendall at the hotel so you all can enjoy homecoming. And I
Yeah.
know everybody doesn't have that situation. I get it. I definitely get it. But that's one of those things because they have been around Kendall. They're comfortable with Kendall. They understand all about the routines and everything and keeping things in order of what she's used to. But yes, my wonderful oldest sister met us in Tallahassee. My middle sister was there as well. And my oldest sister was basically our babysitter in
Yeah.
Tallahassee for homecoming. So we were both able to be at homecoming. And that
Yeah.
was a big deal for us. I
That
mean,
was huge.
it was huge. I mean, we had a great time, but
Yeah.
it was because my family knows about autism. They're used to Kendall.
So
They're used
you're
to being
basically
around her.
saying, even if it's not a family member, find
Almost
your
definitely.
village.
Come,
Find
yes,
your
ma'am.
village.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
I have a village. I mean, I could call right now if something happened for sure. There are 2 people right off the bat that I could pick up the phone and they're here. And there are more than 2. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
But you need to find your village. I know who I can call. I have a former student, and I have to tell everybody I've been doing this for 27 years. Some of my former students I worked in a high school are now adults. Please understand
Yes, they
that I
are.
can call and they can support me because they are now
Mhm.
part of my village. The village has
Yeah.
extended to, her mother. So understand, it's all about what you're willing to do. My other thing, when we needed to find a babysitter early on, we did have a babysitter when they were younger. We got it from the daycare.
Mm.
And
Somebody that already knew her.
exactly.
Genius.
Yes.
Genius.
Yes. and we're still in touch with the babysitter. She's, of course, she has her own family now and everything, but that's how we got her from the daycare. We asked her out
Wow.
to decide, hey, are you interested in doing some babysitting for us? And so that allowed us to go out on dates, and it wasn't a lot
Because
of
that's
dates.
right. You're still a wife.
I'm still a wife.
You're
Yes,
still a
ma'am.
person.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And let me say, we just celebrated our 25th anniversary. So
Yes, I
we
saw
we
that.
overcame, we've been able
Congratulations.
to overcome that hurdle of raising a special needs child. But we found that
And
babysitter.
your son doesn't seem to have missed a beat. Like, I
No,
don't think he feels as if, well,
we
all
didn't.
the attention was on her. Y'all did.
No.
And so when I gave you my introduction, I meant every bit of that. You are phenomenal.
Well,
And I
thank
want
you,
you to
thank you,
just
thank
soak
you.
all that in,
Yes,
okay?
ma'am.
Because
Yes,
you
ma'am.
are.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yes,
I
ma'am.
just appreciate you so much for taking the time
Thank
to come
you.
on. And
Thank
we
you.
had
Thank you.
people
Thank
in
you.
here saying, please bring Miss Butler back.
I'm willing to come back. Yes, I'm willing to
Yes.
come back. So we can definitely, categorize this and break it down and just deal with transition planning. This is what it needs to look like. This is what you need to do.
Yes.
Because there
Yes.
is no blueprint to tell you what you need to do. We are figuring this thing out, and some of the things are behind us now, but I don't want other parents to stop because they're just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And it can be overwhelming. It can.
So one more time, they can find you on Facebook by your name
Yes. Or they
and
can, and for on a page, our business page is Kendall Autism Support and Consulting. And that's
and
on
on
Facebook.
Instagram.
It's Autism Support Coach
And
on
if you all
Instagram.
don't remember any of that, you can
Yes,
message me
yes,
and I
yes,
will relay the message.
yes,
Thank
yes,
you
yes, yes.
so much for
Not a
coming
problem.
on.
I'm
Um,
so, I'm so glad we were able to figure out a date, because at one point it was like, I don't know when this is gonna happen.
I
I was like, I
look,
don't know.
perfect
So
timing,
it was
perfect
perfect. It was
timing
meant to be right now. So
right now.
this is the perfect timing. But yes, we'll have to come back together, have this conversation, and talk about why it's so important to vote. All it still goes back to voting. It still goes back to the same thing. I need
I
you to
was
get
trying
out and
not to
vote.
mix the two,
You can't help
but
but
I
mix
am
the two.
running for office.
Correct. We cannot avoid mixing the two. It is about
Yes,
voting and making sure you have someone that's going to get you what you need, that's there looking out for your
absolutely.
community, not just there because it looks good. We've got to pay attention. And some of these elections are not 4-year elections, they're 2-year elections. We've got to make sure we're showing up. The in
Yes.
between elections count as well.
So, like,
So,
even right now, we have municipal elections.
see,
So,
exactly. Exactly.
mayor, city council, that's this year, and
Correct.
nobody would even know. But
Exactly. We've got to make
gotta
sure
pay
we're paying
attention.
attention. It's
Yep.
so important. So,
Thank you,
yes,
thank you, thank you for your
no
time.
problem.
I
No
love you,
problem.
girl, my fellow rattlers.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All day long. Yes, ma'am.
You have
Always
a
there for another
great,
rattler.
yes, have a great evening. Tell
You
Rich I
too.
said hello.
I will. I
And that
will.
I appreciate all that he does too, because look, we
He's there
got some
too.
solid
Please
men
understand,
behind us.
I am not a single parent.
Yes, yes,
He is an active participant in
yes, he
how we
is.
do things.
And
And
so
it's actually
cool about it. He's so
he's
cool about
he's
it.
pretty laid back about it.
Yeah, he
He's just
is.
laid back, period. Now,
Yes.
here's something before I go to make you laugh. Because we have routine in our house still follows a certain structure and timeline with Kendall.
Uh-huh.
And right now, her bath time is 9 o'clock. I
Okay.
understand. She's in the bath right now
Yeah.
because it's 9 o'clock. Parents, that routine will help you. We're going to talk more about that as well.
Oh yeah.
Because
You
here we are now. We didn't have to tell her. 9 o'clock, she saw it on the computer. She got her pajamas. She got everything she needed to go and take a bath. She knows
and
at 10 o'clock.
that is also, that is not something just for special needs children. Like, that's going on in my house too. The shower is on. So
Yes, ma'am.
routine is just good for people, period.
Yes.
Especially our children. So
Yes,
like
ma'am.
mine
Yes.
have a routine also. Oh, we're gonna come back. We're gonna come back. We got woo, yes. Tanika, we'll be here all night, girl.
I know. And it's
Thank you
late and
so
people like,
much.
I want to go, I need to go to work, but I'm trying to. So yes, we're gonna come back together again. We definitely are.
Yes,
And talk about some
absolutely.
other stuff and bring this all together.
I
Yes.
appreciate you.
No problem.
Have a
So
great
thank you,
evening.
Facebook. Thank you for tuning in.
And I
And
think
hopefully,
YouTube also have moved
and
up in the
hopefully they
world.
learn something. That's my biggest thing. I want people to
Yes.
feel like they gained something. So hopefully
I,
you learn
I
something.
gained something, and I followed your journey and I gained something. So this
So
has
good.
been amazing. Thank you so much.
Okay, dokie. Have
Until
a good
next
one.
time.
Yes, ma'am. Until next time. Have
All
a good one,
right.
everyone. Good night. Bye.
Good night. Oh my goodness. What a wealth of information that we received tonight. I hope that I have brought value to your evening. That is what I strive to do. I am a Tanya Jean Funny, and I would love for you to stay in contact with me by going to my Facebook group, A Jean Funny Community Conversations. Join me in there, okay? Come over, join me. A lot more is coming on the horizon. As Tanyika mentioned, I am a candidate running for Commissioner, District 3, Clayton County. 2024, and I am in my fundraising season right now. So if no matter where you are in the world, if you would like to fundraise for me, donate, volunteer, I would love, love, love your support. I need all the support, the prayers, because I am absolutely here for the people. I am funny for the people, and I will put my information in the chat so that if that is something that you want to do, you find it upon your heart. Let me put it in there now. Here, dot. Find it in your heart to want to join me. I would totally appreciate it. So it is secure.actblue / donate a gene hyphen funny. Okay. So that is my donation page. I appreciate you all so, so much. I will bring Tanyika back again because it was so much information that we need to unpack. She gave information for children with special needs, parents, help parents, grandparents, but we also talked about just plain old parenting, parenting with positivity, as she coined it, and having that relationship between the teacher and the parent is so important, and making sure that we give the responsibility to our children also. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me. I am a Tanya Jean Funny, your audacious advocate, and I use my love for learning and my passion for community engagement to empower families. You all have a wonderful evening.